Attention true believers, the Fantasticast is on the air. This week, episode 276, covering Marvel 2-in-1 number 37, Game Point, featuring Daredevil's alter ego, Matt Murdock, and with special guest host, Christine Hanefalk. Hello! And welcome to episode 276 of the Fantasticast, a flickeringmyth.com podcast network show. We are your podcast guide to the Fantastic Four from the beginning of the Marvel Age of Comics. Every issue, every spin-off, every guest appearance, and cameo. My name is Steve Lacey.
My name is Andrew Leyland.
And today on the show, we're doing something that we've had the opportunity to do in our coverage of Marvel 2-in-1 to date, and that's take a look at a 2-in-1 issue set in actual current Fantastic Four continuity, as the Thing goes on trial and his only defendant is Daredevil's alter ego, Matt Murdock, attorney at law.
Hurrah!
Hurrah! Did I get to introduce myself?
We'll bring you
He's
any
not
second.
got there yet.
Yeah. Okay, so you're building up to it. Okay,
We are.
Spoiler alert.
If you were still wondering who our guest for this episode might be, well, the fact that we've gone for Daredevil-related characters means there was really only one person we could turn to. So making, well, I believe it's her 6th appearance on the show, we're very pleased to welcome back Christine Hanefalk.
Oh, good to see you. Or hear you.
Is the camera on? Oh, grab a jacket.
Put your pants on.
Yeah. Yes, I'm back, and it's great to be back. Always a good time.
It's really great to have you back. In terms of actual episodes, I was just having a look, it's been nearly 2 years since we last had you on the show, when you joined us for a much earlier issue of Marvel. Oh, I was about to say 2-in-1, but how about I scroll along? Yes, you joined us for our 3rd issue of Marvel 2-in-1, which had Daredevil as the guest star, and an eminently forgettable plotline, because I can't remember a damn thing about it.
Yeah, it is eminently forgettable. It's a good thing I haven't written down the plotline.
But you, of course, we have heard your voice more recently when you joined us for our live recordings at Thought Bubble, answering our grab bag of questions, which was lovely to have you on. But yeah, we when I was looking through and saw, we have an issue with Daredevil, but we also have an issue with Matt Murdock.
Yes.
There really was no one else we could turn to. So I guess as traditional, we can now ask the question, hey, what's been going on since we last spoke to you?
Well, I guess it's good to hear that I was your first and last choice to to get to record this episode with you. Well, I've actually been kind of quiet on the blog front, as people who are followers of my blog may have noticed. It doesn't mean that I'm sort of not doing anything, though. I mean, well, I work and stuff, but comics related. I have recently. I will appear as a co-author of a yet-to-be-released book on Daredevil and psychology that I think comes out in June. And I'm also kind of working on my own, non-fiction sort of Daredevil book about Daredevil science, which has always been a big interest of mine. So I'm kind of doing that a little bit behind the scenes, and then I'm taking it kind of easy on the blogging front. But I'm looking to get back into it very soon, though. I do miss it, and it's such a great crowd to have. I mean, the fans of the blog and everything. And aside from that, I'm doing well. So that's what I'm doing.
When's the psychology book out?
I think it was supposed to be June.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure. That's what it says on Amazon.
Right, because Daredevil's fascinating psychologically.
Yeah.
Just this whole idea of justice is blind, and the lawyer by day, and the vigilante. He's one of the most psychologically rich of the Marvel characters. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Let us know when that's out.
Yeah, I will.
I'm looking at the Amazon listing now. This is Daredevil Psychology, The Devil You Know.
Yes.
Yes, by Travis Langley, who I recognise that name from a number of books in this vein.
Yeah.
Very good.
So yeah, he's the editor, and he contacted me about not gonna say about 8 months ago, I guess, something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And asked me if I wanted to co-write a chapter
Very good.
with him.
Have you been enjoying Charles Soule's run?
Well, here's the big shocker for everybody. I kind of stopped reading it like 12 issues in, and I have yet to catch up. And I have a whole pile of them that I need to go through, which is like the first time since I got into Daredevil that I'm not actually reading the current book, which I need to do eventually. Not so much that I can blog about it.
It's absolutely great.
Is it?
I'm loving it.
Did it get better?
Yes. I liked it from the beginning, but there was that whole, how did he put the identity back in the bottle and all of that?
Yeah.
And I thought how they pulled that off was actually really impressive. And now they've got into Fisk. I think it's one of Marvel's best and most underrated books at the minute. I really do enjoy Daredevil.
I seem to remember Christy and I had a long chat at Thought Bubble about our struggles with the early parts of the Saul run. Because I didn't really click with it.
Yeah.
And kind of just went as, you know what, I probably need a Daredevil break then if I'm not connecting with this.
Yeah.
But the more recent stuff has made better stories out of the foundations. Bear in mind that I just didn't like that first year at all. I didn't like the art. I didn't like the costume change. The character felt relatively unrecognisable. They've created some much better stories. And it's right that I've read, I think, 3 issues of the Mayor Fisk run. It's just like, it's that great thing of, right, put Matt and Daredevil in a completely new context, change everything around him and see who he is. Yeah.
No, it sounds really interesting. And it's one of those things, like, it's horrible that it needs to be on a to-do list. But it was sort of just like, I just kind of needed to walk away from it for a little while. Like, I so love this character, and that hasn't changed one bit. But it was, I just wasn't really enjoying it. And I'm like, well, you know, I'm eventually going to catch up, and then it's usually easier if you read a bunch of issues at once, and then you can, and that's what I've been sort of doing. So I think maybe I'm up to I'm like almost at the end of, I think it ended like after that blind spot character was blinded, and then Matt was looking into like, oh, but I had this like potion from Bullseye, and then I didn't read beyond him just thinking about that because that bit put me off a little bit too. Like, I really don't enjoy when, you know, the whole like gratuitously maiming people and then putting them back together, because that's what I'm not sure it's even going to end up there, but it was like that's what comics does a lot of the time, and it's like, you know, and they also kill people often when they come back from that. So, but it just like, that's a bit of a comic book cliche to me. So I was just like, you know, but I have like all of the recent issues. I still go to my comic book store, you know, at regular intervals and pick them up, because otherwise, you know, like they can't keep them for me forever.
Yeah.
So I you know, do that. And I mean, I'm looking to read, but okay. I'm going to have to read it this week. Well, I'm off for Easter. I'll read it for Easter. Okay, I'll get back to you.
Honestly, it won't take you long to read them. I'll be brutally honest.
It is a Marvel comic.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, for me, I bailed out after Mark Waid left, and then Comixology had one of their frequent sales, and I picked up the first couple of trades. And by the time they got to the reveal of how they got his identity back in the bottle, I was like, oh, all right, I see where you're going. And Daredevil's a character who is littered with, right, let's blow his world up and start again in his history. And this is just another one of them, basically. And as he's gone on, you've slowly started to see, oh, I see where all the puzzle pieces are going. And it's retroactively made the beginning of his run much better.
Okay, interesting.
But yeah, you'll get through 25 issues in a weekend easy.
Speaking of the first few issues, I hated the Raider sense, though. That's another thing that, like, if you're already not really enjoying it, that's the kind of thing that would just be like, that and a bad radar. You know, like, I hate it when they just do it like an Instagram filter. You know, like, what's up with that? Like, don't draw it at all. Like, don't even... like, leave it out completely if you can't do it right. Seriously. I'm sounding harsh now, but yeah.
Comes something when we're saying that the CGI moments in the 2003 Daredevil movie were better depiction. Although, for me, with Radar Vision, it always goes to that Marcos Martin double-page spread from the first Waid issue. Which just... it covered so much more than just Radar, but yeah. I've realised we have done one almost unforgivable sin of podcasting. We have assumed that our listeners know what your blog is and where it is, so please do tell us what your blog is and what you have done on it in the past.
Okay, absolutely. My blog is called The Other Murdock Papers. It's a play on the title of a story arc, actually, by Michael Bendis from his and Alex Maleev's run. It's called The Murdock Papers. So mine is The Other Murdock Papers, which is a good enough pun to have ended up on the cover of a Waid and Somni issue. But that's a different story. Anyway, the URL is www.theothermurdockpapers.com. And I've been doing this, obviously not very much lately, but ongoing pretty much since late 2007, so over 10 years, which is pretty crazy. So there's plenty to read there, and I do find that people find it, new people find it, even now, even when I'm not blogging as much as I should. So it's nice to have it. It's a decent archive of pretty much everything you'd want to know. It's not as structured as manwithoutfear.com, which has a very kind of structured archive of all the issues and all the different characters and such. This is more like me having opinions on things. About Daredevil. Yeah.
And that there is some great stuff in there. I've lost many a work hour to having a route through. So yeah, I do head over there. But the main reason why we're all here tonight is because we're talking not about Daredevil, but a lawyer called Matt Murdock. Is there a Daredevil connection? It's a bit hard to tell. So we will get into our coverage of this in just a moment. But first, one really important thing, and then one slightly less important but very structural thing. So the important thing is that we are sponsored this week by... I've forgotten who we're sponsored by. It's been a really long day. I always said Audacity. That's completely the wrong fucking platform, and we do not have that kind of...
I have Audacity.
We are sponsored today by Stitcher Premium, home of the Wolverine The Long Night podcast from Marvel. It's their first scripted podcast and is available exclusively through Stitcher Premium. This service would normally cost you $5 a month, but for our Fantasticast listeners, you can use the promo code Fantasticast at stitcher.com/premium to get 1 month for free. So you'll be able to listen to all the episodes released so far, plus those released during your free month as well. So please do head over to stitcher.com/premium, use the promo code Fantasticast, and you can hear Richard Armitage as Wolverine in Wolverine The Long Night. And now that bit's done, this week concludes our look at books cover dated March 1978 and released during December 1977. This is our last comic from 77. In Marvel Comics, this was the month in which Aunt May lay close to death as Peter Parker tried to get to the hospital despite being attacked by the Green Goblin in Amazing Spider-Man 178. The Avengers 169, a fill-in issue, introduced the Eternity Man, a deranged dying billionaire forced into suspended animation to stop a world-ending bomb from detonating upon his death. Black Panther number 8 returned T'Challa to Wakanda, where his half-brother Jakara, mutated by exposure to vibranium, ran amok. Captain America and Falcon 219 canonised the 1940s Captain America movie serial by tying the production of it into the history of Lyle Decker. Captain Marvel 55 introduced the life-stealing villain Death Grip. Conan the Barbarian number 84 revealed Belit's fate on the run following a prophetic dream in which she killed the ruler of Herat and sent Conan on her trail. Daredevil 151 featured the cast of the book in shock following the suicide of Heather Glenn's father. The Defenders 57 had the Hulk team up with Valkyrie, Hellcat, Ms. Marvel and Clea to tackle AIM. Godzilla King of the Monsters number 8 featured the long-awaited throwdown between Red Ronin and Godzilla, with Ronin's pilot, Robert Takiguchi, desperate to prevent Godzilla from activating a nuclear pile without killing him. Howard the Duck number 22 reunited Howard with both the Man-Thing and Jennifer Kale as they were forced to team together to tackle the insanity of, I believe it's pronounced Buzkcho, in May the Farce Be With You. Let's see what they did there.
Clever.
Yeah. The Incredible Hulk 221 saw Stingray make an ill-advised attempt to keep Bruce Banner and the Hulk from New York. Quite what Troy Tempest and Phones could do against the Great Jade Giant, I have no idea. The Invaders number 26 took Bucky to a Japanese internment camp to rescue a surgeon who could help save Toro's life, only to come face to face with Agent Axis. The Invincible Iron Man 108 had Tony Stark work to save his friends from Midas's Golden Touch and battle the Growing Man at the same time. Marvel Team Up 67 had Spider-Man work to free Tigra from being controlled by Kraven the Hunter. Marvel's Greatest Comics 76 reprinted Fantastic Four 95, in which the Monocle, who everybody remembers, attacks, an event that everyone also remembers. Master of Kung Fu number 62 brought the cat back into Shang-Chi's life. Ms. Marvel 15 saw Tiger Shark break free from Hydra Base, kidnap Namorita and battle Ms. Marvel. Nova number 18 concluded Nova and Nick Fury's battles against Yellowclaw. Red Sonja number 8 was published. Spectacular Spider-Man number 16 saw Peter Parker become party to the troubled marriage of a New York cop while Spider-Man battled the Beetle. Star Wars number 9 had Han Solo and his bunch of mercenaries defend the village from attack, while Luke Skywalker went missing whilst looking for a new rebel base. And finally, the Mighty Thor 269 featured the return of Stiltman and Blastar. And if any Stiltman fans out there were wondering where Stiltman got his vibranium legs from, it was this issue. Just the one.
I did not know that.
Yes, so that was that bit. As the music fades away. Chris, do you want to take us through the cover to this comic? What's on it? And we'll have a chat.
The cover is actually one of the better aspects of this comic. It's got this nice, it's a courtroom scene, but it's still, it's quite dynamic. It's got the Ben Grimm sitting center stage, handcuffed, though he's pulling his handcuffs off, or like he's breaking the chain. And then in the foreground, we have a dismayed Matt Murdock, who is, angry because he's thinking to himself, I defended the thing and lost. And this is happening as apparently, just going by the cover, you have the judge here saying, "You're guilty, Benjamin Grimm. I sentence you to 20 years." And Ben goes, "What?" And it's got a nice sort of, black, darkish background. And it's, I actually quite like this cover. I don't know about you guys, but
Andy?
I love the cover. I think the cover's brilliant.
Yeah.
I think it's actually happens in the issue for the most part, which is something we haven't seen for a while. I like that Ben's in kind of a reinforced shirt that's still breaking when he snaps out of the chains. And I love the forlorn Matt in the foreground there. I defended the thing and lost, and he's putting his fist in his palm like Batman used to do in the 60s TV show.
Yeah, it's a pretty good cover. It's very, very rare. To be honest, even today, that Matt Murdock is the featured character in a Daredevil-related book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a nice tease that we're getting a slightly different type of story within this. And yeah, I quite like these put front and center as the lawyer rather than as the superhero.
Yeah, and I actually, I like that side of Daredevil is featured quite a bit. And of course, it's very convenient in the Marvel Universe to have a couple of lawyers who can come in and be lawyers when they need to be. So he's got a useful, secret identity life too. So comes in handy.
Yes, because other books at this time are struggling with, Nova has no use in his secret identity. The whole stuff with Carol Danvers being a magazine editor for J. Jonah Jameson has sort of fallen off a cliff, really. She got the job. She's now absent from the job whilst doing superheroing. She's probably going to lose the job because Jonah is not known as a forgiving boss.
Yeah, no. It's written by Marv Wolfman, who was writer and also editor, I think, at Marvel at the time. And then we have pencils by Ron Wilson, inks by Pablo Marcos, letters by John Costanza, and colors by Roger Slifer. I'm going with Slifer. And of course, the name of this issue is The Thing and Matt Murdock together. Well, that's more kind of the branding. Game Point is the name of this issue. And I will now take us through what happens in the first half of this issue. On the first page, we see the Thing lying in bed reading, of all things, Stephen King's The Shining. Nice product placement, that one. Poor Ben has other things on his mind, though, and can't focus on ghost stories, as he puts it, though that's selling The Shining a bit short, I'd say. But there's more! Unbeknownst to Ben, but glaringly obvious to the reader who's viewing this thing through the crosshairs of some unknown weapon. Someone is out to get him. As our story continues, Ben does some more commiserating. The Fantastic Four have recently, quote-unquote, busted up, and he's worrying about how to get a job by looking like a garbage scow. His words, not mine. Suddenly, something small stings him, causing him to thrash around and destroy his bedroom. Ben figures it's his nerves. What about the ominous crosshairs? Still there, as it turns out, as we get a sense of someone following Ben as he takes to the streets to clear his head. Over the next couple of pages, we follow the Thing's anguished internal monologue, while more of those mysterious bullets, keep hitting him, causing him to accidentally trash everything in his wake, including a city bus. As he regains his composure, a bulky-looking guy wearing what appears to be spandex shows up, 2 police officers in tow, demanding that Ben be arrested. The police grudgingly agree, and Ben comes along of his own free will. The cuffs don't fit him anyway. At the precinct, the police go through the process of checking Ben into his temporary new home, which includes gathering his highly unusual-looking fingerprints. The formal charges against him are willful destruction of public property and creating a disturbance. In what appears to be about 5 seconds, the police have arranged a lineup that seems ridiculously superfluous given that he was caught red-handed at the scene and has admitted to the crime he's being accused of. Surprising no one, the suspiciously buff guy is able to recognize the rock-shaped orange guy who tore up a city street with no trouble at all. The Thing then spends a fairly pointless page being antisocial around his cellmates, among them a pint-sized guy wearing a green beret, and your friendly neighborhood drunk. Ben is not amused and wraps the 2 of them in a mattress so he can be alone. Pretty sure that's another punishable offense. Before he can get himself into even more trouble, Matt Murdock, Ben's quote-unquote lawyer, shows up. It's not clear why Matt gets to be a quote-unquote lawyer rather than an actual lawyer, given that he is an actual lawyer, but we're going to let that slide. Matt says he'll try to get Ben out, but the latter thinks he deserves to be locked up. And that takes us halfway through the issue.
All right, first page, Ben is a Stephen King fan.
Yeah.
We've had him read Stephen King novels before. I can't even remember which one it was. Was it Carrie?
No, Salem's Lot.
Salem's Lot, that's the one. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
This must be kind of as they come out. Like, when did The Shining come out? Because this was 77.
Yeah, I guess. I said, currently Googling it. The Shining, yeah, it arrived in 77, so it was out at the start of the year. This was out at the end of the year. Yeah, I guess it was a popular novel.
Yeah. One thing I love about this this page too is that I keep looking at that box of chocolates he's got, and I'm wondering, like, how does he grab them?
How does he get his big fat rocky fingers into those tiny little squares? Maybe he just licks his finger and then sticks it to the chocolate and lifts it up that way.
Or he could pick the box up and just kind of rattle the box and like have a couple of them just drop into his mouth.
I like the Watson. I like the design. I like that he's drinking beer through a straw. He's got a cigar on the side there, as well as a pen and pencil and a fan, because it's obviously a bit warm. I want to know, why is he not staying with Alicia anymore? Yeah,
that's a good question. I think that's a picture of her, though, in the background on the left, isn't it? Like, it's just a woman's chin. It could be anyone, but maybe that's Alicia.
It could be Sue. There you are.
It could be Sue, yeah.
I don't think that's beer that he's drinking, because it's got ice cubes in it.
Oh,
and
right.
even Americans wouldn't put ice cube in their beer.
Right. I did not see the ice cubes.
Probably lemonade.
The thing that really attracted my attention on this page, I can't believe I'm bringing this up, because it's so unlike me to get distracted by a small inconsistency or niggle. Ben's cigar is the wrong way round on the ashtray. Why would you have the lit end hanging over the end where it could drop ash everywhere, and the sucking end? And also, how does it balance like that?
The sucking end.
Well, that's what you do with it. Steve Lacey, cigar aficionado. Just suck that baby hard. Oh, wait, no. I'm just leaving. So anyway, the cigar's the wrong way round.
You're right. I didn't even think about that.
Nice colour work on the splash page.
Yeah. Ben refers to The Shining as a ghost story, which it very much isn't. Oh, wait, no, sorry, it did. I was thinking of The Stand. I'm an idiot.
Oh, okay. No, I mean, I guess, The Shining does have, it has ghosts in it. It just seems very sort of, it's just so much more than a ghost story that it, it's also a story of, ghosts, of course, but madness and, this whole, the main character being a writer who, goes increasingly crazy. It just feels kind of reductionist, I guess, to call it a ghost story. It's sort of like, it's got some ghosts in it, like, those freaky twins, referring to the movie now. But he's a fan, so I'm not going to
it's like calling To Kill a Mockingbird an episode of Law and Order.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure Clark Kent would be disappointed with. There's a couple of wonderful panels on the next page, close-ups of Ben as he's trying to think through his recent stuff, and just his eyes are moving from corner to corner. And I feel like this is quintessential Ben Grimm here.
Yeah. No, it's great. And actually, this part of it is, some of these panels, because there's so much internal dialogue, it's good that we're talking about them separately, because it's hard to get into. It's hard to get all of that stuff in there without it becoming incredibly detailed, because there's so much, a lot of, both dialogue and internal monologue in this issue. But of course, he's having all of this sort of self-doubt. He's not living with the Fantastic Four anymore, and he's genuinely worried about getting a job, which of course, he could replace like a tractor or something at a building site, but but he's distraught, even at the beginning of this issue, and he complains that he can't focus on the book because his heart's not in it, and his mind is elsewhere. So that's kind of the state he's in when we meet him.
And it's quite unusual that Marvel 2-in-1 should be so rooted in exactly where the Fantastic Four book is right now, because it's always skirted around the sidelines or just plain ignored what's going on there. So, for instance, when Ben lost his powers and was in the Thing suit, that wasn't reflected in this book. The previous issue was set a few issues ago in Fantastic Four time, because Reed was still stretching, he hadn't lost his powers. So to now have this fully set feels like it's taking advantage of a situation that it previously hadn't done so to tell stories. By contrast, this month's Fantastic Fantastic Four issue has Ben in a couple of panels, and that's about it, because it's very focused on the Human Torch, which, because you've got this story happening, makes a bit more sense. It makes these titles feel more connected than they have been. I don't think I ever reached the point of doing a proper story that starts in one and finishes in the other, but it's nice to see that events in one are being more properly reflected in the other.
Yeah, so I mean, you guys would know that better than I would, but they, I mean, they are referring to things happening in other issues, so I just have to take their word for it.
I have to wonder why Ben is staying in such a cruddy place. Like, the plaster's peeling off the walls, his bed is breakable simply by stretching.
Well, he does
although
say
that is plot related.
He does say he's staying in a crappy flop house, and you've got to wonder, why?
Yeah.
Avengers Mansion couldn't put him up?
Right, you'd think he'd have friends.
Yeah, you'd think that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Maybe the bit that's been missing from every issue of 2-1 so far is the page after where Ben is just incredibly rude to people without realising it. And he's found himself accidentally blacklisted amongst the superhero community.
Yeah, exactly. That could be part of it.
That's why he set up the poker game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The shots through the lens, as it were, are all really interesting.
Oh, it's a lens, probably, yeah.
Yeah, I do wonder why he took a poke at him in the ass.
I wonder why he focused so much on Ben's ass, because if you ignore the dialogue, it just becomes incredibly voyeuristic in a creepy way. It's like, there he is, and there goes that sweet rocky ass.
Oh, and then that sweet rocky foot, because, foot fetishism is a thing, too.
Yeah.
Even on the first page, there were his huge feet,
So yeah, Ron Wilson clearly working out a couple of frustrations. And when I say clearly, I mean not clearly at all. Please don't sue us.
Yeah.
After Ben destroys the lamppost, we get a panel which is one of my least favourite things about this design of Ben Grimm. So we've reached the point where Ben Grimm has the very, very pronounced and quite inorganic looking eyebrow shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And we then get a profile shot where the eyebrow shelf comes round in front of Ben's left eye and then just sort of hangs there. It doesn't seem to actually reconnect with his face anywhere.
Huh. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
So it looks like... I've been trying to work out how to describe it all weekend, and it looks like instead of having one piece that functions almost like... Imagine Georgie LaForge put his visor up onto his eyebrows. That's how Ben's shelf should sort of look. But now imagine that you cut out the middle third of the visor. That's how it appears to be drawn here. And I don't like that, because it is a complete thing that goes all the way around, but what Ron Wilson's done is stop drawing it at the apex.
Yeah. Yeah, it is odd looking. But I actually find, starting with, the bottom three panels, I guess, that you're talking about now, I don't find the artwork very clear in this. In the action scenes here in the beginning, where it's got this, I guess the last panel on this page is like he's put his foot down, and then you can see glass shattering, and you can kind of tell that that's like part of a building, but that shatter effect looks really weird to me. And then on even on the next page, it's sort of it's not very dynamic looking. Like, the way the bus is drawn next to him, it's almost as if it looks more like the bus came from above and just nearly hit him, more than it looks like he tossed it or, smashed it or something. So I think that it took me a while just like looking at the pages to try to, okay, of course you get that. Oh, he's in a street, thrashing things. Beyond that, like exactly what's happening, what is he doing, what is he touching, where are his movements? I don't get a great sense of what's going on. I don't know if that's just me, but yeah.
Wilson draws a great thing, but we have had issues where he's been drawing stuff and the images or the storytelling hasn't been particularly clear. He's definitely strengthened by having Joe Cineton inks rather than... Was it Pablo Marcos we've seen recently, Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the heavy ink lines.
Talking of inconsistencies in the artwork, or rather, just inconsistencies in general, what's wrong with the panel where Ben stamps his foot with the big wham?
It doesn't look like his foot's connected to... Oh, he's smashing down the wrong foot.
The wrong foot, yeah.
He's lifted
Unless
up.
he's stomping.
No.
He's hopping. He's hopping. That wasn't what I identified, but yes, bonus points.
So what did you identify?
Now them bees are attacking my 10 little toesies.
Oh.
As very clearly only 6 are drawn.
Yeah.
Oh, dear me.
Yeah, he's losing toes, like, since the first page. I guess he's one short.
Yeah. Ben has never been drawn with 10 toes either, but I think this was a big moment of, surely someone should have noticed Ben doesn't have 10, and I bet we get a letter about this in 3 issues' time. Moving on, I do like the big splash page where the Ben... Good grief, we'll never get out of this, will we?
No, we'll always call him the Ben.
The Ben.
Here's the thing, I wanted to say the bus.
Yeah.
So anyway, the bus smashing and the inset panels of the scope focusing in on Ben's thumb. It's just a nice bit of layout and a nice big explosive moment is that we pull back from what Ben's been doing to see this much bigger thing going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a good looking page. I still, maintain that it looks like the bus came from somewhere other than, Ben's hands. It looks like it just came down from the sky and hit him.
Yeah, it looks like he's swiveling around to backhand it, but the bus looks like it's landing in front of him. And if he was backhanding it, then surely it would fly the other way. Yeah,
there's just something kind of off about it. It's good looking, and I mean, speaking of good looking, I like the skyscrapers in the background too. I think are a nice little detail for your reminder you're in New York and stuff. And it looks nice. Even the details in the lamppost. It looks like someone spent a lot of time on this. Well, not someone, but on this page. But it just the dynamics of it don't really do it for me.
It's obviously that one bit in New York where you can see one skyscraper and then no other high-rise buildings at all because of the way the rest of the background is done. But I mean, I'll go with artistic decision to provide focus on the bus. And then the completely not suspicious at all guy turns up. I'm suspicious of anyone who just wears a vest and isn't inside a gym. I just am. I mean, you just know. That's he's trouble. I get the feeling as well that as he's pointing the finger at Ben and persuading everyone that Ben, I also get the feeling he's just a really bad actor. There's something about his pose, like it's such a deliberate pose with the hand on the hip and the finger pointing forward. That is him, officer. I demand his arrest. Keep gone berserk. That thought in mind.
Yes, I think so too. It feels very scripted.
Yeah, well, I remember this story. You remember that?
You know what I will do when I start editing this just after we finish recording our coverage of the second part of this story. That's when I'll remember it, most likely. Yeah. But the pullback shot of all the destruction around Ben is pretty good as well, because we've only ever seen to this point the isolated moments, and then to bring it all together.
Yeah.
It's good, and you get the sense of Ben's shock at what's been going on. He's been so internalised with what's happening, he hasn't noticed that he's done everything else. And that's where I think leads to his otherwise seemingly out of character moment of, oh my god, I'm a monster, please lock me away.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, he is out of control in this scenario. Like, he's lost his composure. He's lost his, he's swatting at invisible bees, I guess.
That's what I really liked about this story, that it is building on decades of willful property damage by Ben. Sometimes for comedic value, but sometimes when he's being mind controlled by villains. And it actually lends this story a certain credibility that we've seen in trash places. And he's not the Hulk. Ben is supposed to have a control. He's supposed to have a mind of his own. And if he goes on a rampage like this, he can cause damage and he can hurt people. And it gave the story real weight. I liked this one. I really did.
Yeah, I did too. It's got some pacing issues that we'll get to. But
it's Marvel 2 in 1.
I know. It's sort of like they're trying to make 2 issues into 1. No, I'm kidding. That's not what that stands for.
So this is a story about a superhero out of control, causing loads and loads of public damage, public threat, and basically the real world, in inverted commas, reckoning with that and trying to do something about it. Is a young Mark Miller reading this?
Very probably.
It kind of is Civil War, but quicker and without an ending that revolves around MySpace.
And characters being in character?
Yes, yeah, we've got many years before we have to reckon with that one, don't we?
Yep.
And thank God for Dwayne McDuffie.
Yeah, making Fantastic Four good.
But I like this the arrest scene. I really quite like that, how reluctant the officers are. Like, oh, you do it. Like, I don't want to cuff him, you do it. But, because he's got, and it's a great moment when this buff spandex guy says, "Good riddance, I say, he's a menace to society." And then the cop answers, "A menace? Mister, that menace once saved my daughter's life." Menace, geez. It's got that, nice reminder of, aside from all the property damage, Ben's done a lot of good for society too. While damaging property in a lot of cases.
As is pointed out during the trial, hello, Galactus.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the second half. The whole booking Ben and identity parade stuff is also quite hilarious.
It is hilarious.
I want to see this in a Marvel Netflix show. I want to see cops frustrated. What the hell do we do when someone 8 foot tall and made of rocks is being arrested? How do we handle this?
Yeah. But isn't it weird, though, how small he looks all of a sudden, like in the top panel on that page when he enters the police station?
Yeah, when he's all sort of hunched down just because he's literally carrying he's not literally. I need to remember how that word works. He's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. And I like the physical change of that. The fingerprinting is quite funny.
The fingerprinting is hilarious. It's like one of the best moments in a comic book ever. I just love that. And it's like, I love the sound effect of it. Like he dips it in ink and then it goes Spock, like you can hear something hard against a hard surface, or at least I think it's paper.
Why does he only give one fingerprint?
I think they figured that like one is probably enough to ID him. Although if it left him, sort of like the only person we know who's got fingerprints even remotely like this is
yeah, because
maybe they just realized that, like, we're not going to be able to use these.
Well, like the cop's reaction pretty much signifies that. Yeah, that'll do. Whatever.
Yeah. Oh, and another thing, but the top half of the page when he's entering, it's got that wanted poster with what looks like a picture of the Hulk on it.
Oh yeah,
I like that little detail.
That top panel that covers half the page is really lovely. A lot of detail in that.
Yeah.
All we need is a police dragging a bald-headed criminal across the panel as the bald-headed criminal makes some random reference to 70s continuity. Which is a joke I loved up until the point it last appeared, where it was front of the panel, the guy's going, "Hey, a 17-year-old running gag ain't ezy to pull off. Don't draw attention to it. We've enjoyed it in the background.
Yeah,
keep
if
it
you
there."
left that alone, that would have been much more subtle.
Yes, I'm just wondering about Ben's fingerprint. When he gets all mutated in the 80s... and gets more dinosaurish. I'm not quite sure that's quite right. But do you reckon his fingerprints change and he could basically get away with anything? Because they're looking at him going, well, we can tell it's him, but on paper, nope, we got nothing.
I'm not even convinced Ben has a fingerprint.
Yeah, I'm not sure that counts. Really, it's more of a it's a rock print. It's not a fingerprint. It's like you can take just like a piece of brick or something and duplicate that. So,
or 20,000 years of running water.
Yeah.
And then it's off to the ID parade.
Oh, which is also hilarious. It's like, you caught him at the scene. He confessed. It's like, what's...
Yeah, what is the point of this?
Yeah, and he even points it out himself. Like, "No, Mr. Grimm, the lineup, we need positive identification." And he goes, "This is getting ridiculous. I did it. I destroyed everything. Just lock me up and flush the key." And it's like, no, we have to go through this ridiculous routine where it's like, we're going to pick like 5 other extremely odd-looking guys in very different sizes, and it's like, and then you're gonna have that same guy who ID'd him at the scene come in and do it again at the police station. I'm like, no.
It's astonishing they didn't even attempt to have some consistency amongst the other people on there.
No.
And also just this whole thing about we have to do it through the lineup. Was this some kind of weird legal requirement in the 70s? Because the guy's confessing.
Yeah.
Or is this just the police being, let's cross every I and dot every T and make sure that we handle this beyond by the book?
Maybe so. Yeah, maybe so. I can't imagine that it would be a legal requirement for a case like this. I just can't even. Although you never know, the Americans are sticklers for protocol.
Mm-hmm. Is the kids and the drunk on page 14? Are they supposed to be somebody?
The ones in the jail. Yeah, I wondered that.
Because they're drawn in that kind of way that we've noticed before. When an artist draws somebody with a specific likeness, it's normally a reference to either a real person or a pop culture thing of the time. And, I mean, I don't know this kid. I mean, the only person I could think of was Gary Coleman. But this predates Different Strokes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So it can't be him. Now, the only other thing I could think of was the Easy Reader guy from the Spidey Super Stories TV show, whatever that was. I don't know what it was. Something to do with Sesame Street, I think.
Okay.
But I have no idea who the drunk guy's supposed to be.
Yeah, he looks... I mean, I guess familiar, but he also looks familiar in that way that a lot of, if you're going to do it, I mean, he's an archetype, drunken guy, although he looks like he's from a different decade.
Well, with that derby hat on, he looks like Mikshas Pitalik.
And then even the cop looks like he's got a lot of physical comedy with he's got that huge stomach and it goes boop. And then he actually bounces them into the jail cell with his big belly. And then from behind, he looks just, it's pretty incredible looking, actually. I mean, he also looked very sort of exaggerated to me.
So I had to look at Marvel Wiki. There was no reference citation for what these people look like, but the kid is Eugene Everett, who will reoccur over the next few issues.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so that's all we'll say about him now, because it looks like things develop in the next issue according to the Marvel Wiki plot summary. So instead, we'll...
okay. Hold on. SuperMegaMonkey.net. A poster has put that the police station is based on the early 1960s sitcom Car 54, Where Are You?
Oh.
Which means absolutely nothing to me, because I wasn't alive in the 60s and have never seen Car 54, Where Are You?
I haven't either. And I wasn't alive in the 60s either. I don't think it made it to Sweden either.
However, if it did, it was before your time anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Yeah.
Basically.
So what do we think about his, bundling these guys up inside a mattress?
First of all, I'm pretty sure that they're going to die.
Yeah, like when you look at it, it's like they're going to suffocate. There's not enough air in there. That's going to add to your list of felonies, buddy.
And secondly, I'm sure the police would have intervened very, very quickly.
Oh, yeah. Well, you never know. They could be crooked. or big, thing fans. Like, we'll look the other way. You do your thing. No, but it's even got, like, the chain around it. Yeah. No, buddy, that's not a good move.
We conclude the first half of this with the guest star turning up for one panel.
Yes.
It's a late entrance.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, he'll show up for one panel in this half of the issue. And it's interesting, like, I wonder who called him in, because it's not Ben, and to my knowledge, like, none of his other friends know that he's there. Nobody's come to visit him. Nobody's come to... Maybe one of the cops knows that they know each other and, tipped him off or something.
Oh, maybe Matt just heard about it in his lawyer circles.
Oh, maybe... Yeah, maybe so.
Franklin came rushing in and said, "Hey, have you heard what happened?" And Matt's all like, "No." And Foggy's all, "Oh, they just arrested the Thing." And Matt's all, "I will go over there and sort this out."
Yes, but I do like it that they refer to him as like, it's over 2 hours later. Okay, it's 2 hours. Okay, I missed that part. So yeah, he will have heard about it through other channels. Definitely, it's probably the word's out on the street. And but it says like when Benjamin Grimm's quote unquote
thanks for that
lawyer finally arrives, and I'm thinking, if you're wanting, to point out that he's also a superhero, that, he is that, but he is also actually a lawyer. So
the lawyer in speech about things made me smile as well. Like, he is actually a lawyer.
Right. So, but he's cocky. He's like, "Don't worry, Ben, I'll get you free within the hour."
Well, Matt is a bit cocky, isn't he? So
he is.
It kind of built into his persona, so I was fine with that.
Yeah, so that kind of concludes... Well, I mean, the last panel is just, Ben being all like, "Free, you got it all wrong, Murdock. I want to go up the river." Oh, actually, up the river. That's... we could go into where that comes from. Feels kind of... I mean, it has to do with slavery, so maybe... But I didn't know that it was also an expression for, like, going to prison.
I thought, is there a prison called Sing Sing?
Yeah.
Which I thought was upriver.
Oh, okay.
Batman always used to say it in the 60s TV show as well. "We're sending you up the river, Penguin."
It's 50 kilometers north of New York on the east bank of the Hudson River, so it is literally up the river.
Okay. That makes sense.
Because it was quite an infamous prison in the early 20th century. In fact, here we actually have it on Wikipedia. Contribution to American English, so it doesn't really count. The expression up the river to describe someone in prison or heading to prison derives from the practice of sentencing people convicted in New York City to serve their terms in Sing Sing. The prison is literally up the Hudson River from the city. The slang expression dates from 1891.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so then I'm thinking of a different expression for
not just entertainment, but information as well.
Exactly. You all learned something today. The more you know. That takes us to the second half of the. So now I'll go to the synopsis. That was a word I temporarily forgot when I was like, what's the word for like?
Before we do that.
Yeah.
Whilst Ben and Matt get started with their lot of talking ahead of them, which presumably starts with verification of Matt's legal qualifications, we'll take a quick break, and when we're back, we'll head to the courthouse.
Hey kids, comics!
Hey Michael!
Yeah?
We need to do a new promo.
A new one?
A new one.
Why?
Because we've moved.
Moved?
We've moved to a new place. We still read comics.
We do, we still talk about comics.
Because you can't do a comic book podcast unless you read and talk about comics, because that's kind of stupid. But now, we have a new episode still available every Thursday, but at twotruefreaks.libsyn.com.
Hey kids, comics!
So remember, Hey Kids Comics has moved to twotruefreaks.libsyn.com. Still, every Thursday. That'll do, won't it?
And we're back. Christine, do you want to take us through this important legal proceeding with no shenanigans?
Yes. So, second half. This takes us to the exciting trial portion of this issue, which begins at a preliminary hearing sometime later. In a move that's shockingly similar to the second season of Daredevil, the television show, Matt has a bunch of character witnesses lined up to vouch for what a great guy the Thing is. The prosecution points out the flaw in this legal strategy by stressing that this hearing is about whether Ben destroyed property and whether that in turn makes him dangerous. The next witness is one Alex Stone, our buff guy from earlier who claims to have had his property destroyed. He goes on to list several of the more disastrous past Fantastic Four adventures and how he and his property have been impacted by each of them, going back to the Thing's battle with the Hulk in Fantastic Four 25. According to Stone, it's not only he who's been affected, but the city itself through floods and blackouts and even the uprooting of innocent trees. Ben, already down on himself, starts to feel even worse when he listens to Stone's testimony. Stone really gets going when he basically shouts at the courtroom that the Thing is a monster that should be exterminated, and that next time, he might be murdering an innocent child. At this point, the judge comments that Ben's rampage is clearly not without precedent, but that, in the past, Reed Richards was always able to pay for all the damages he caused, which seems like a separate issue to me, but hey, I'm not writing this story. Sorry. It's now Matt's turn to question Alex Stone, and he's reminded by the judge that he should be judicious about time since this is only a preliminary trial. I guess it advanced from preliminary hearing pretty quickly. Oh, and Matt now asks Stone why he refused a cash settlement, which makes you wonder whether this is even a civil or a criminal trial. Certainly he could have abstained from pressing criminal charges, but wouldn't the Thing still be prosecuted for the destruction of a city bus and tearing up a whole sidewalk? Details, details. Either way, Stone answers by reiterating that Ben is a monster and should be locked away. What if he should attack our kids? This really upsets Ben, who can no longer remain seated. Outside, Alicia is banging on the courtroom door, begging to be let inside. In the courtroom, a defeated Thing laments that he needs the Fantastic Four to straighten him out and that he doesn't fit into society. At this point, the judge slams his gavel, announcing that the grand jury will retire to decide whether or not the case will reach the quote-unquote full jury. I'm not sure quote-unquote full jury is the word he's looking for. This takes exactly one panel. Just as the grand jury decide to put Ben on trial, he's once again stung by that bee from earlier in this issue. He lashes out and trashes the courtroom, and Matt notices that his heart rate and respiration are elevated. Ben now feels that he's being stung all over while the police jump on top of him, and a desperate Alicia pushes through the door and runs for her man. Ben calms down and embraces Alicia, letting the police with the guns in his face know that he'll go with them calmly. But not so fast. The judge is about absolutely pissed and yells that he'll see to it that Ben is proven guilty. This seems like a bit of an overreach for a judge, so let's hope he's not overseeing the actual trial. Meanwhile, something more subtle is happening. Matt is recalling an ultrasonic hum he heard just before the Thing went wild. Whatever could that be? The issue ends with both Foggy, yes, also in this issue, comforting Matt about the case, Ben comforting both Matt and Alicia, and the prosecutor rubbing Ben's guilt in Matt's face, despite the fact that this is supposed to be a preliminary hearing. Oh, and of course, Matt is silently getting ready to pull out Daredevil to prove Ben's innocence, while Alex Stone reveals himself to be the asshole we knew him to be all along, as he thinks to himself, "It's worked, just as he said it would. Grimm's in prison, and soon he'll be behind bars. Forever! All that's missing is a mwahaha." And that concludes this issue.
Superhero legal battles, always fun.
Yeah. No, but seriously, I'm amazed by how much, Matt is not focusing on this case. It's got little old lady here on this first page of the second half, who is charming and old and vouching for Ben's good nature, and I'm thinking, well, that's not really the case at hand, is it? But maybe that's just me not being a lawyer and all.
I want to know who's that guy who's pretending to be Foggy Nelson on page 16.
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah.
And it's not just the colouring job, which gives him the wrong colour of her. It doesn't look like Foggy.
No,
it really doesn't. So the focus for this back half of the issue is the trial, and this is where this issue's guest star really stands out, because I can't think of many occasions, and I'm really struggling to think of any before the publication of this comic, where Matt has had a prolonged courtroom scene where he's been Matt Murdock and not had to rush out, pull on his costume and get involved in something, where he's actually followed an argument, perhaps as shaky as it is in here, but actually done his job.
Yeah.
Albeit badly.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking, he's going in there with my client is a good guy, you should let him go. Oh, but your good guy client actually ruined the city bus. Oh, but he's a good guy. And I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna.
But
I know that's what they did with the Punisher in in season 2 of Daredevil, but it's still shaky.
The argument is literally, oh, look at him, Your Honor, he's so good. But it's nice to see. It's just nice to spend this amount of time with a superhero in their civilian identity doing the job that they have trained, qualified for, studied for, presumably spent quite a bit of money on as well, rather than taking every opportunity to shoot themselves in the foot professionally. Because at least at this time, Thor is making good hay out of every time Don Blake shows up. All of his staff have lost their jobs because he hasn't been there to pay. His offices have been repossessed. His building's been torn down and something else put in his place. And he's just standing there going, doctors aren't supposed to go missing for 18 months at a time.
Yeah. No, I wonder if this is, sort of because I didn't think about that. I mean, now looking back on Daredevil history, you're used to there being, longish courtroom scenes. But you're right. I mean, even in the main Daredevil comic, there are quite a few during the Frank Miller run, but not that many before that. I mean, there's an early issue where he's kidnapped, the one that's called Mock Trial, where he's kidnapped by the Owl, and it's a mock trial. So it's not even really a real trial, but you'll see him occasionally argue something in court, but it's never sort of the focus of the story. So
no, and this was quite brave, for want of a better word, for this time to actually have Daredevil in the issue and it never become Daredevil. He stays Matt Murdock all the way through. So have the thing team up with Matt as on the cover was really quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. And I love, aside from Foggy, who looks like, actually like the Thing grabbed him by the head and kind of squished it. Maybe it did, they're sitting next to each other. But I like all the other details in the scene, from, the look of the prosecutor who's got this old-time 3-piece suit that's way too color coordinated, but, we'll let that slide. And then it's got the draping of the flag, and it's got, sort of the distinct faces of the jurors, and it's got all of those nice details. I do wonder why the buff guy, now known as Alex Stone, is still wearing spandex to court. But
he doesn't own a tie. That tells you everything about this man's character.
Or a shirt, or exactly. He's I must display my biceps wherever I go, always.
Yeah. This thing of dressing up to impress the jury has been replaced by flex my pecs and display my masculinity to impress the jury.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that one old lady on the jury looks very impressed.
Maybe she's daydreaming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Back to the days when...
She's one of those people who the favourite bit of Civil War is the bit where Steve catches the helicopter.
Yeah. Well, then, and that's, of course, followed by this page where it's got all the flashbacks in it, which I think is a beautiful page. And I also couldn't do it justice in the synopsis because it is so freaking detailed, but it's a thing to behold.
Yeah, so there's details of specific things getting destroyed from the Thing-Hulk battle in the Fantastic Four 25 to 26. We've got stuff during the battle with the Silver Surfer in 123, or when, I can't quite remember what happened in Fantastic Four 111, but there was some destruction there.
It was the Thing-a-mock.
Oh, was that before he battled the Hulk or after he battled the Hulk?
I think it was before he battled the Hulk, I think.
Okay. But yeah, there have been some very specific, and I know in issues past, like the destruction of the carousel, we took great delight in. And they missed out when they pushed Galactus backwards into a roller coaster, which happened somewhere in Stan Lee's brief return to the book. It's good stuff, and these two pages do a much better job of tying in past events to justify what's going on than the Fantastic Four 100 and I think 91 or 190 did, the one where they just look back over Ben's history of the Four's history of breaking up by being more specific about that. And as you would do in a legal argument, you cherry pick what you wanted to support it and hope the other side don't cherry pick the bits that tear down your argument.
Yeah.
So obviously what's done here is they don't mention the number of times Doctor Doom's tried to do stuff, the Thinker, Galactus, the Skrulls, all those things, which very clearly outweigh this.
Yeah. And of course, I mean, this is a testimony of this Stone character. So he would pick all the times that his property was damaged. But I also like the little insets, like the smaller panels showing Ben's face as he's sort of like, he's got his hand in front of his face, almost like, he can't actually see the scenes that are being described, as sort of like, hiding his face out of shame and stuff. And then he says, I never realized I was doing all that. Sheesh, I really should be locked away. Because, of course, from where he's standing, he's got, when he's going into battle, his focus is on the task at hand, to stop an intruder or to do whatever. And then, of course, all of these things that are being destroyed becomes it's an afterthought. And from his perspective, it perhaps should be, but he's never really considered, especially, I guess, if Reed Richards is paying for it. He'd never have to he doesn't have to see the checks. So, but it's quite an emotional, this page is probably my favorite page of the issue in terms of just both the action scenes and kind of the emotional reaction from Ben.
Does it look like at the top of page 23 there's been a relettering when the other lawyer says, now that the Fantastic Four is no longer a team, it no longer looks very different from the rest of that bubble, as if there was something else there and someone's had to get the Tipp-Ex.
Oh, on page 23?
Yeah, you're right,
Yeah.
Maybe the original was now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It looked a little strange. Foggy's imposter is still there.
I mean, we would expect Matt not to notice that, but everyone else would surely have said, wait a minute, Foggy.
Yeah.
No, come on, we'd expect Matt to actually notice before anyone else. His heartbeat sounds wrong. His sweat smells different. Something like that.
Yeah.
The judge says, please remember this is a preliminary trial. Advice he would go on to disregard.
A few short pages later.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the legal details is he goes from first it's a preliminary hearing, and then it's a preliminary trial, then it's you are guilty, and I'm like, wait a second, are we getting ahead of ourselves here? But we'll get to that. But it doesn't feel like this judge is the most professional judge. I doubt that he's even a judge. How's that for a little curveball?
Looking at page 26, I love the long panel in the middle of the page, which is Ben's talking about, I ain't man enough to be human, and it really accentuates his size by framing his arms so that they appear next to his torso, just to really exaggerate how he's built, how inhuman his body is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think even the way he puts it, I ain't man enough to be a human or monster enough to be caged, that he's sort of living in between these two existences where he's, which captures his sense of being trapped in his body in a way. Which I guess is, you would know better than me, but I guess it's a common theme for Ben Grimm. When you have a body like that, it must be sort of you're caught between, who you feel you are on the inside and who you appear to be to other people. It's a nice way of framing it.
He, for the most part, he's come to terms with it, but I think it's clear that recent events have really challenged that. And there's that silent panel where he's got his head in his hands, which I think just does a great job of showing how disjointed his thought processes are, how I can't think of the word. Just his sense of identity is being challenged at this moment, and especially with that Alicia there, no sense of if you'll excuse the pun, his rock, because she's outside. It's immediately followed by the latest development in this legal proceedings, where suddenly it's now a grand jury investigation, which is one of the worst things you can be involved with. The grand jury will now retard to decide whether this case will reach the full jury or not. That's not how grand juries work.
Yeah, or I actually Googled this beforehand. I thought that grand juries were they were the jury, but I was wrong. Because a grand jury is a preliminary, you use them for preliminary stuff, but not for, this should have been a simple hearing. Like if you're gonna, I feel like this entire stage feels kind of unnecessary.
Yeah, there are also lots of rules around what you can and can't do when you're summoned in front of a grand jury. So, for instance, if you're summoned, you can't tell people, and I'm going to go see the grand jury. It's effectively a secret summons. And the hearings are... Oh,
is it? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and the hearings are often, they're closed. So you would impanel a grand jury, for instance, if you were investigating something that was covered by an Official Secrets Act, so that the things could be discussed for legal purposes without the details being open to the general public through court reporting, etc.
Oh, wow. You really know this stuff. Sorry, I was like femsplaining to you just now because I had Googled it.
I know. It happens so much.
I know.
I have seen a lot of West Wing, and that way.
Okay.
They assume a certain knowledge about grand juries. So I guess they're just more common in America, or rather, the average American have more knowledge of it. So I looked into this all several years ago as to just what is this and why is it so important to the drama. But yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, but it's cool because of course when the grand jury returns, which is really like it happens between in the space of a panel, and then it's a seemingly an interminable time later. So at least that suggests that the people in the courtroom feel like it's been a long, long, long time. But I'm like, do they have to keep them in the courtroom? That's not usually how it works. Like, it could take hours theoretically, but like, no, we have to stay in here until we come back. So, but anyway, they of course decide that he should be placed on trial, and then.
At which point the crosshairs appear and Ben runs wild again as Matt sits there and goes, his heart rate has tripled.
The funny thing about this is like now his heartbeat's tripled, his respiration rate's shot up. It's sort of like, I know that this is, to show the reader that, look what Matt can do, and, to kind of remind people that he's really Daredevil. Because otherwise it doesn't seem like, even for him, those would be like the most telling sounds that he could be, hearing to sort of get a sense of the situation. It's sort of like, it feels like the fact that he's, rummaging around the courtroom would be a bigger indicator that something's wrong. And then like, his heartbeat's elevated. I'm like, well, yeah, it could be all the exercise he's getting, trashing things.
Well, Matt's nose is very sweaty.
Yeah. I just noticed that. That looks hilarious. Oh my God. And those glasses are awful. They look like mole men's.
Well, there's a story that needs to be told. How Matt Murdock accidentally wore the mole man's glasses for a week and didn't notice.
Yeah.
Alicia bursts in at just the moment, and she dyes her hair between the second and fourth panels on page 30. But I do like this image of Ben holding Alicia really tightly as the cops have got their guns pointed at him and her. Should just point that bit out. They seem quite happy to shoot her.
Yeah.
I know. American cops being gun happy. Who would have thought it?
Yeah, exactly. And another thing in that panel is that's an even weirder looking Foggy Nelson than we've seen thus far. He doesn't even look like he did a couple of pages ago.
And everybody's hair's changed colour as well. Alicia's hair's changed colour and so's Foggy's.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And that's it.
Pretty much, yeah. We've got mysterious macho man stroking his chin as his face just seems to get more and more elongated across the book.
Yeah, he looks like, what's the guy, the masculine villain's name in Beauty and the Beast?
Oh, Gaston.
Yeah, he looks a bit like him.
Right. Gaston is boy.
Gaston, yes, that was close.
I'm looking and going, wow, that's a very Danson-esque forehead. And then I start thinking about The Good Place, and such a good show. Why isn't it back? Anyway, yes. So with some very suspicious chin rubbing, we end the issue. So let's go around the metaphorical table and see what everyone thought of this. Christine, do you want to start off with how you found this comic and how this depiction of Matt Murdock kind of matches contemporary depictions as well? Because I think that's something where I can put you on the spot for that.
Well, I mean, the way he comes into the story, and also his, this, early courtroom scene, where is it? It's on page 16, where he's facing a jury, I guess a grand jury, but I guess a grand jury, this I looked up, is supposed to be 23 people. Anyway, these are only, 7 or 8, where he just kind of delivers this sort of opening address that scene to me feels very sort of quintessential Daredevil these days. Then he's got I feel like he's pretty, his characterization I think is fine for the most part, except he's got some there's some weird stuff that he's saying, like on page 23 when green-haired Foggy is, also sweating, and he's like, that guy's hitting Ben up for everything, has built up a good case, Matt. And then Matt says this, you're right, Foggy. The problem is most normal people still don't totally trust superheroes, especially mutated ones. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that might be true, but it's just a very odd thing to say in this scenario. It's like, I don't know. It just sounds like a really weird thing for him to say. And especially not, we know that Foggy at this point doesn't know that Matt is Daredevil. So what does normal even refer to? And this, I don't know. It's just very, it's just strange to me. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that I find, uncharacteristic aside from that. Well, I mean, he looks sort of, the one thing is that he's kind of, Ben, I'm sorry, but, he's giving up a bit early. Like he's usually, he was so cocky in the beginning, I'll get you out of here in an hour. And now he's, he concludes that he's going to prove Ben innocent as Daredevil at the very end. But he seems kind of complacent about the whole situation, which that is a bit odd to me. But other than that, it's a decent portrayal, I guess. Am I wrong?
No, I thought it was a very good portrayal of Matt Murdock. I like seeing him as a lawyer for an entire issue. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
So, Andy, how do you find this one?
I really enjoyed this, I'll be honest. It's Marv Wolfman's last full issue as writer, and I think he saved the best till last. I like that it ties into previously established continuity, that the Thing can go a little bit amok sometimes, and has, and is pawn shop for property damage. I like that it was largely Ben himself who was the impetus for, no, take me away, lock me up. He's feeling quite down at the moment anyway because of the breakup of the Fantastic Four. And this happening is just obviously keying into his psyche that maybe he is better behind bars because he's struggling in the outside world without the Fantastic Four being a part of who he is. I thought the art was quite solid throughout. And like I said, for the time that this was written, to actually have Matt Murdock show up and be Matt Murdock for the entire issue was different and exciting. And I really enjoyed it. I thought this was a really good issue, a team up. Yes, the legal stuff is, wrong, but it doesn't impact on the enjoyment factor of the story, which I thought was really good.
That's very true. In fact, it adds to it almost. No, I mean, I like it when it's a bit quirky.
Oh, yeah.
Even when it's being serious, it's always fun to have.
Yeah, to have it be a little bit odd.
Speaking of odd, one thing we forgot to mention was that, you know how Alicia had her hair cut in between panels?
Yeah.
No, colored, I mean. She also had it cut. If you mean colored, but it's also cut. If you look at her in the last panel, on the final page.
Oh, yeah.
Look how short her hair is.
It's a bob cut, yeah.
And I'm thinking, is it layers? So I went back to the page before it, to see if it was shorter in front, but it doesn't appear to be, so it's just shorter.
Yeah, I found myself really enjoying this as well. It's a very different type of story, so that there isn't a villain for Ben to fight. We don't have to get bogged down in a whole load of action. It can take its time a little bit more, and all the stuff with the morose Thing ties in quite nicely with his feelings in the breakup issue at the Fantastic Four, No More, which we had just a couple of episodes back. So it feels a lot more consistent with what we've had. As I said during the sort of analysis of the book, there is a better story to be got out of trying to tie together previous events than we had in the Fantastic Four at the time as well. And I feel this on the whole was just more successful. And yes, seeing Matt in his lawyer aspect rather than his superhero aspect, although we will get that next issue, was a pleasant change of pace. And considering Daredevil at this time is in its bi-monthly phase, where the sales had dropped, that they were only willing to put out 6 issues a year, it's quite a good showcase for a character that I feel most people had either forgotten about or weren't that interested in. So hopefully, well, I mean, we know what brought Daredevil back to monthly. That was Frank Miller, but maybe this was able to just generate a little bit more interest in the character than there was at the time.
Right.
So elsewhere in this issue, we have a full-page advert for Marvel Treasury editions, including the Star Wars editions, Marvel subscriptions, pizzazz, and the unfortunately titled Spider-Man Spoils a Snatch hostess advert. Stop it, Andy.
Sorry.
We've got guests.
We have. I apologise.
We can pretend to be better than this.
Okay, yeah, right. You're absolutely right. I do apologise.
The ever-loving Blue-Eyed Letters page opens with Ed Veer, who wrote in to analyse Marvel 2-in-1 including how the story funneled Ben's anger at Alicia's mutation towards Hydra instead of victim-blaming, and to praise Ron Wilson's depiction of her mutated form. Ted Longstroth calls Alicia's mutation a cancerous waste of a supporting character, and found Chauncey and Trevor to be delightful. And finally, Everardo Aguilar has some criticism of 2-in-1, including Marv's tick of having a character cry "no" when something bad happens, and Ron Wilson drawing Sue's force bubbles as coming from her hand instead of her head. As he points out, they're psychic, not physical. And if you want to have a read of this issue, you can find it in one place only at this time, which is Essential Marvel 2-in-1 Volume 2. We hope there might be in Masterworks in the future, but currently this sits outside of the published volumes. And yeah, that concludes our coverage of this issue. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we're back, we'll be thanking Christine, taking a look ahead to next week on the show, and seeing what our number one for the week of release was.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Mike, I'm trailing.
Man, it sure is great to be back to FCTC after such a long time.
Yes, it is, and we've been away so long.
Yeah, but real life and... You know what? I just can't do this.
Can't do what?
We have taken more breaks from this show than my wife has had in her entire life. I mean, we can talk about real life getting in the way.
Which it has.
But it's just not fair. So we're not going to joke around, and we're going to simply say that for the moment, we're back, and there's a lot of neat stuff to talk about.
Like Season 2 of Lois and Clark.
And the death of Clark Kent.
And the launch of Superman the Man of Tomorrow.
And the return of Lex Luthor.
And the trial of Superman.
And Underworld Unleashed.
The show can still be found at the Superman homepage, as well as at the Fortress of Baileytude.
And we're still part of the Superman Podcast Network.
So From Crisis to Crisis is back.
For now.
And it will still come out on Thursdays.
Most week at www.fortressofbaileytude.com, www.supermanhomepage.com, or www.supermanpodcastnetwork.com.
And we're back.
Christine, thank you so much for coming back and playing with us on the Fantasticast. It's such a pleasure to have you on here. It really is. And we're very pleased to have had you back.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it tremendously. Always do. It's always nice to hang out with you guys.
Do you want to take a moment and let everyone know where to find you around the internet?
Okay, well, it's The Other Murdock Papers is my blog. It's at www. I hate saying W 3 times in a row. Okay, W 3 times in a row .theothermurdockpapers.com. And then The Other Murdock Papers also has a Facebook page that you can just find by, searching for The Other Murdock Papers. And then I'm also on Twitter as Chris, CHRAS _TOMP. And of course, TOMP is also for The Other Murdock Papers. So that's where you find me. So
and links for those and for the upcoming book with a chapter co-written by Christine will be in the show notes. So do go and click on those. Andy, what have we got next week on the podcast?
Fantastic Four 193, as we carry on the Four No More story. Day of the Death Demon features a guest scripter, so we'll look forward to that.
And some behind-the-scenes changes that we'll dig into next week. And now we end, as always, with our number one for the week of release. And, it's a brass band.
Is it not that?
No, that's the Blue Peter theme.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, it was Mike Oldfield who did that, wasn't it? Carry on.
It's specific. I don't think it was him, actually, because it predates Mike Oldfield, because it was from the 50s. But it's the Brighouse and Gastric Brass Band.
Okay.
With the Floral Dance. As so memorably covered by Terry Wogan a few years later.
Yes.
Yes.
Enjoy this.
Yeah. I can't say it's much worse than some of the stuff we've put to the top in recent years, but yeah, number one can sometimes be very eclectic. So we're going to leave you with that. And you know what? You've made it this far. You can make it through that as well. We will see you in 7 days' time for the Death Demon. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Great stuff, guys. This has been a Flickering Myth Podcast Network production. For more information, head over to flickeringmyth.com for more shows like it. Find this show in iTunes by searching for the podcast name, and head over to youtube.com/flickeringmyth to subscribe to the Flickering Myth movie show. We'll see you on the next podcast. Take care. Bye-bye.
Enough said.